Hello, I'm Sean Richards of Not Yes Man's Economics. What I want to talk about this week is the oil price and developments there. There's been a lot going on, and the headline out of this is that we've seen negative oil prices. Now, that simultaneously does mean and also doesn't mean what you might think. So, let me take you through it. This actually started approximately a month ago. What happened there? There was a type of turf war between Saudi Arabia and Russia. At that point, oil supply, in essence, they were going to pump it up. The price fell to somewhere between $30 and $35. That seemed a big deal at the time. And their target was the American shale oil producers, so they felt they couldn't produce at that sort of money. What happened next, though, was something that caught them out because the coronavirus or COVID-19 pandemic meant that oil demand collapsed. Where I live in London, regular flight parking to Heathrow, there's quite a shortage of planes. So the two factors came in, this led to a weak oil price. We tried to correct this with planned cuts from the beginning of May. I'm not so sure that they're enough. But even if we look at that particular situation, what we've seen here is that for the short term, there aren't any supply cuts. Demand's gone, so the May contract had particular trouble. If we now come into factor a particular issue for this in the United States or West Texas Intermediate or WTI, is that it's landlocked. There's not many places to store it. It might not seem a big deal, but the Brent contract, UK, Europe, other parts of the world, it's actually at sea, and at the moment they're storing it on tankers. Why? Well, not a lot for them to do right now, or much less than before. So it's a type of perfect storm, and we've seen negative oil prices. Now, there's a context to this, which is if we look out through the year, actually oil prices are quite a lot higher than that. So it's a short-term thing, but here's the next issue. Will the next contract, when June comes in, July and so on, will they have some of the same impacts? I think that they will, maybe not as strong. If we now switch over to the economic impact of this, one thing's quite helpful, because for consumers, workers, cheaper oil prices, filling up your car more cheaply, that sort of thing, heating oil cheaper perhaps, that it's a benefit at quite a hard time. But it's not the only factor in play here, because if we stay with the economics, there's an exchange going on here. Where's this? Well, from producers of oil are losing, because even if we look at the back months for oil, they're getting, say, something in the 20s of dollars for their oil compared to what they'd hoped for, which would have been, if we think back, or like $50 or $60 not so long ago. And then the exchange goes to the consumer. Consumer benefits here. For example, higher real wages because there'll be less inflation. Now, there's a slight undercut to that because, of course, petrol, diesel, whatever you fill your car up with might be quite cheap right now. And there are not so many people driving. There've been various people, if you look around social media, saying they filled their car up when those various lockdowns started. But since then, they haven't driven their car. So maybe a little of the gain's an illusion. But the impacts of this will play around the world. Think through and consider the situation. I expect there to be both funds and banks hurt badly by this because they're expecting an expiry price of $20, say, and they got one more like minus 37. But don't be surprised to hear of trouble for banks and funds.